So high school English, I learned about the Epic of Gilgamesh, which kind of helps me start this whole journey. So when I think about the past few years, I think about it as like an epic journey, and as a hero coming to the end of my quest, I start to narrate all the things that I've went through and my reflection on life. So I have had a hard time admitting that I'm an artist because for a very long time it has not felt like I was an artist. So it was more like of an internal battle of me trying to get there. So from where I stand today, I can finally admit and introduce myself as an artist. So hi, my name is Primrose and I'm an artist. I consider myself a multidisciplinary artist because I work in ceramics, I work in sculpture, and I also work in drawing and painting, which is my specialization. So in my work in portraiture, I kind of paint figures in relation to the environment. So when I'm doing figures and my paintings, I assume the first thing that someone sees when they look at my work is the background before they look at the figure. So I try play around with my backgrounds a lot, and then I have kind of divided my paintings into non-objective painting and portraiture. So for my non-objective paintings, I work in this style where I am just looking at the relationship between colors. And I start by laying down India ink on canvas, which is like this big bottle. And it does make the black lines where the color is gonna get filled. And then afterwards, when I started doing this initially, I would do the relationship between colors and how they relate to one another, how one makes the other brighter or dull. But then since I've painted people so much, whenever I lay down my little black ink, I kind of start seeing people in my non-objective paintings. So I kind of see people in their abstract form, which is like one of this, which I just did. So it represents people and their intersections with one another. So I think people have just started to trickle into all of my paintings in one form or another. So as an artist, one of the things that I've had to do this past few months is kind of look at my early influences and how I ended up becoming an artist. So growing up, I grew up with my grandparents who always had stories about why things are the way they are, or stories about nature. And some of the ones that I vividly remember are stories about why the rabbit and hyena are not friends, even though they used to be friends, or why as a girl I was not allowed to whistle at night. And the stories that had a lot of myth and superstition are one of the reasons why I think in my exhibition I wanted to do storytelling. And this, when I was growing up and learning about this, I think they served as a way of how I was required to live in life or how I had to behave. And also looking at my exposure to fine arts, I think my first exposure was to African traditional craft. And I remember my grandma, who you'll hear me refer to as Shosho Birita, she made a lot of earrings and necklaces when I was growing up. So she would make earrings, and these are some of the ones that she would make. And they had this intricate patterns and colors, and I would sit and watch her do it. I still don't know how to make them, but I think from her I learned how to use my hands and how my finger was supposed to move when I was sewing or knitting. And this is where I kind of learned how to use beads in my work, because when we start looking at some of the paintings, you start looking at beads and how I use them to embellish my paintings. So initially my idea with portraiture started with this specific painting. So this is my first painting that I did for Jim's class, and for this painting specifically, we were supposed to take collages from different artists and then bring them together and make something new. So I chose to use Vermeer's Girl with a Pearl Earring because I really liked the painting, and then I decided to use African fabric on the back just to make it look a little more colorful, because in my portraiture, I do want people to always look at the background before they look at the figure. So my inspiration for the background is a lesso, which I remember my grandmas would wear, and most women in Africa wear them, in Kenya specifically, that is. And it's just a cloth that you put around your waist, and then you just put it on there when you're doing your daily activities. And since this is the beginning and we are going to talk about opposites, I decided to make a painting on myself. And it just features me on the same background, little changes with colors. And then this is just where the end meets the beginning. My work in story collection started at a time in college where I felt really lost. And I remember I had this routine phone calls with my babu makori, and that's just a translation of grandfather in Swahili. And we would talk about just random things. And one morning I woke up and I thought to myself, I know my grandfather with the role that he represents in my life as a grandfather, but as a person, I really did not know much about him. So I started asking him questions about, how he grew up and how he met my grandma and all that. And I remember that morning we sat down and talked for hours, and I had my notebook and my pen, and everything that he was telling me I was writing down. And at the end of it, my intention was to write a book for him, but as he grows older, I generally know he's not going to read a book. So I think for me, making this film was for him to see the whole process and how he's influenced my life. So Babu Makori was born in 1938 in Isani, Kenya, and this was the time when Kenya was still under British rule. And he recalls when the Mau Mau rebellion was still going on, and this rebellion is when mainly Kikuyu leaders were fighting for freedom against the British government. And one of the things that he recalls was when the Kikuyu tribes people in his village were taken because they were seen as enemies of the state. And this was like the time when the British government had its own Holocaust against the Kikuyu people in Kenya. On the other hand, Babu Makori was climbing the teacher's ladder, and he finally made it to be principal of the school that he was teaching in. And one of the things that I remember about my grandfather is his compassionate nature and how he's always caring. So I wasn't surprised when he told me that parents trusted him with their children. Before retiring, he worked in a governmental role where he vetted teachers and placed them in schools where they needed to be placed. Before retiring, Babu Makori worked in a governmental role where he vetted teachers and placed them in schools where they needed to be placed, and he emphasized that he never took a bribe from anyone to put them in their desired placement. And one of the things that I learned about him is that his name Makori means blessings from people and God. And it's just weird how names have so much impact on our personality. And I think at 86 years old, he still continues to be a blessing to me. My maternal grandfather is Joseph Omari, and in my family we call him Professor. And the reason we do is, in another life, we are pretty sure he would have been a professor of English because he loves literature and he's also an eloquent speaker. In this life, however, he was a primary school teacher and he taught math, and he also pressured me a lot to be good at math. And I do not really know much about his life just because I love the mystery of not knowing everything. And I do enjoy seeing him as my grandfather and as this figure who I have known so far. Another cool thing about him is he never told me stories, but he always gave me books when I was younger. Up until now, we do still exchange books. And then he has always read a newspaper every day of his life. So he has a collection that dates up to 60 years ago. And when I was younger, he never liked when I touched his newspapers because he always liked going back to the newspaper and reading them. But then I would always wait for him to fall asleep, and then I would seal the midsection because that's where everything about fashion and art was in there. So I guess he also had a little bit of an influence on my artistic practice in a sense, because through him getting those newspapers, I got to have this exposure to different arts, especially fashion. So I think I owe him that a lot for exposing me to that. But yeah, for this painting, I also wanted to do flowers. So this is before Jim told me I could use fabric to do my backgrounds. So for this, I had to go in and paint every flower. And the reason I did this specifically is because the way he is, he's a very flamboyant man and he likes being majestic. And I feel like this painting kind of encapsulates all his characters because he does, like, you would think he's the king of the land in my family. So he has that character, which is also seen in the way he sits and this painting that's very flowery and bright. So yeah, this is the portrait that I made of him, and I cannot wait for him to see it in person. So hopefully this year he gets to see it in person. That's what we're going to talk about today: religion, God, belief, and all that. I mean, I can start by saying my belief system has been something that's always changing, because I feel like life gets to a point where, you believe, sometimes you don't, and sometimes you're just there. And I feel like mine has always been like, I grew up in a very confused household. That's the best way I can describe it. Like, my parents never went to church, so we never went there. I don't even think they've seen the door of a church. And then my grandpa is a pastor, so when I was with them, I literally had to go there. So, there were those moments where I felt like the presence of God was within me. But then as I grew older, I feel like you start questioning things. I don't know if you've had these moments, but I always have these moments where I feel like, why am I doing this? I don't know. Have you had those moments before?
I think before, like you said, like everyone's background is different. For me, I wasn't raised in the church either. I don't think I really started to get as involved as I am now with my faith until college. So I would say, yeah, before college, I think I did have those moments. If it was really a question of like how it plays a role in my life, it was always something that I feel like everybody believes in or has a grasp of, but you don't really commit yourself to it. Like, you don't kind of educate yourself about it. You don't really involve yourself in it, identify yourself with it. I think it's just something that we all kind of we all kind of, as a collective, was like, okay, there's a God, and then that's the end of the story.
Yeah.
So I would say, yeah, until now, there was times where it was like, okay, God, all right, here we go, so.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not gonna lie. Even today, I do not really know how to describe my take on religion or anything, because I feel like when I got into college, I wasn't in a point where I really believed in God. It was more of like, I'm gonna take philosophy, because I was confused for a very long time, and then I learned this. I don't know if you've heard about this quote from Socrates, that a very unexamined life is not worth living. So I feel like that kind of drove me to start on philosophy, and then with philosophy, I got into a point where I wanted to understand why I believe in the things that I believe. And one of the things that I wanted to examine so much was my religious belief, because I feel like that's like the pillar of everything in life, believing in something. And I remember for a while, I would say I was an atheist, but then when I think about it, nothing can come from nothing. Like, the universe cannot just, like, I feel like at the end of the day, when I think about it, everything comes from something. So I feel like the more I was kind of asking myself these questions, the more I was like, okay, technically nothing can come from nothing. Nothing has to come from something. And it's just like this cycle of things being in opposites, and life being at, like, it's either good or bad, this or that. So I think asking myself this question was like, okay, well, I have to believe that something made this world. But then what I could not settle on was like, okay, if I believe God made everything, then who the hell made God?
For me, like I told you, it was finally really committing my life to God. So just briefly, I'll kind of touch on what I mean by that. And then you said, like, before, who made God? It's a common understanding that God is like the Alpha and the Omega.
Yeah.
Everything started with God. Everything in this world went in with God. So there really is no God, okay, who made God there? That's not the question at hand. And I see what you're saying. A lot, I guess sometimes people do kind of question religion because there are so many different religions. But like you said, like the universe didn't come of itself from the universe. So I think that was a good point, but yeah.
You know, the funny thing is, I feel like mystical experience, or like when you think you experience God in the moment, it's hard to explain. I mean, I feel like it is hard to explain or put into words. It's like when someone asks you to describe happiness, it's like hard to explain into words what you feel in the moment. And I remember when I was in the 3rd grade and I wanted so bad to be the first person in the class. And I remember for the longest time, I don't know if I'm gonna call it praying or manifesting, but we're gonna call it praying because at that time I was really a believer. And I remember I would go in front of the mirror and I would say I'm gonna be the first one in class, and I literally say the number of like the max that I needed to be the first one in the class. And at the end of that, it did happen. So sometimes I feel like I have had this experiences where I can say they're like mystical experiences, but then putting it into words becomes really hard. And then I feel like I think too much to the point where I'm like, well, I don't know I don't know who to attribute this to. I mean, if there's a God, good and well. If there's no God, good and well. And I also feel like being a person who grew up in Kenya at the time and learning about colonialism, it's like you start to ask yourself, before this white people came to like Kenya, you believed in things, right? You believed in gods, you believed in all these concepts about what the universe was, and then, you know, someone came and told you it was wrong. So I feel like as I grew older, my interest became, okay, we had all these beliefs. We had this medicine people that we believed in. We had gods or demigods, which people believed in, and then suddenly they were not there. And I feel like my issue was always the point where we lose like tradition in the name of God. And I feel like maybe that's what didn't sit right with me for the longest time. So I think in this conversation, talking about God in the Western religion and maybe God in like a traditional African sense, it's like a little different, because I guess I haven't been to a church in a long time, so I don't remember, you know, how people worship God, or how, you know, the mystical experience, or how God comes into a person and they have this experience where they feel like they're one with God or the universe. So I feel like for me, when I was doing these paintings, it was like a moment of me to like connect with religion, or like connect with all these things that I ask myself.
You know, at certain times, and it's really with anything, there'll always be an opposite until one side makes a decision. So I feel like I've made my decision. It's really sort of, I feel like, something that you'll go through in the rest of your life on whether or not that decision is made. So that's just kind of my take on this, but I think it is beautiful. I think for me, when I first looked at it, it did worry me, because some people, depending on how you look at it, you never want to represent yourself as an equivalent to Christ or equal.
And I feel like when I was first doing the painting, I had my thoughts were on Afrofuturism. Like, that's where my head was. It was just like, you know, when you start having conversations about Afrofuturism, it's like Black people and the future. So that's where I was thinking. It was not like, oh my gosh, I am trying to make an equivalent, of which I wanted to make this film, because I do not want anyone to interpret work in their own sense. Because I feel like, you know, when someone gives you a painting and you look at it, they're ideas that you form, right?
Yeah.
So the reason why I wanted this film to happen is because I want me to tell you the story and not you to make an idea of what you think I'm trying to tell you. And I know, like, someone may look at this and they're like, oh my gosh, she's trying to make an equivalent to like the Virgin Mary, because that was my point for this. And then for you, it was like Jesus Christ. But that was not what I was trying to make. So for me, I think with painting, I have decided, like, I like painting Black people, and that's like, you know, that's what I can do best, right? And most of the time it's just like you have to make this paintings, and then for me I have decided storytelling, it's like an important component of what we're trying to do. So I do not just want to give you, hey, look at my painting and like form your own ideas. I want you to form your own ideas after I have like told you why the
One
hell.
thing I want to say though, I don't. So I think the path you're kind of going on doesn't really align with what I would believe. Well, not what I would believe. I believe. I don't think God can be anybody. I think.
Ooh, okay.
That is,
let me
wait, no,
rephrase
let me finish.
Presence.
Let me finish my
Okay,
thought.
okay.
Let me finish my thought. Do I believe the presence of God can be within people? Of course. But I would never believe anyone. I think I seen this somewhere, but people try to say like, we're all God. We're all creations of God.
Yeah.
We can all have the gift of the Holy Spirit, which is Him living within us, which is why I like this piece, because I feel like before, like I wouldn't even feel comfortable with something like this being made, because one, I wasn't strong in my belief in my faith, and two, I know for a fact before this I didn't have God living on the inside of me like I do now. So for me, this painting represents, and I know you said like what you're meaning for it, but if anybody that knew me saw this, I would want them to take that as that's a representation of God living on the inside of me. That's the representation of my faith, being declared, of me making a decision, understanding that God is the Alpha and Omega. God is above all. God is the creation of all things. I don't think, I mean, we all have our own beliefs, but I don't think that can be
I meant the
anyone.
presence of God. I misspoke.
Yeah.
But the point is, like, it's like, it was going back to that Genesis. We're all made in the likeness of God. And like, in my head, it was just talking about the presence of this experience that you have in your journey with Christianity or God or anything. So that was the basis of why I made it. And then the name of the painting is Son of God. So I hope that provides more context, because, it kind of takes it down from you think,
really the Son of God is
why
Jesus
do I
Christ.
this noise isn't this real thing?
I told you, yeah, but no, the Son of God, Jesus
It does
Christ.
give context to the
I was the name. I actually feel like we all are God's children, but I would say you may need to put A in front of the in the name title. Should be
because then it puts you
Son
the
of
position
God.
of Jesus.
Yeah, Son of
Okay.
God is that.
Okay.
That's not the title.
Okay.
A Son of God.
A Son of God. We're gonna change that.
A Son of God. Yes.
But that was, I feel like also like with the name, it did give context. Well, it does give context when people see it, because people have only seen it in my apartment and in the studio when I was doing it. So it's not been exhibited before. So, there's that whole experience with different people who do not have context of what it is. And then I feel like when I was making my own painting, I did want it to be like a mirror of that. So when I was taking the picture, let me tell you what happened. You know how like when you take a picture, you forget that it's like the mirror? This hand was supposed to be the other side. And when I was taking the picture, I forgot. I did not mirror it. So this hand was supposed to be the one that's raised is the other, but I ended up making it the same thing. Because look, it's the same, on the same direction.
Yeah, I mean.
I meant to do it the other way around, but I forgot.
Oh, so you.
Because I took a selfie, and then I forgot to mirror the selfie to like trace it. So by the time I noticed, it's when I looked back, I'm like, wait a damn minute. It was supposed to be the other hand. So I did the other. So in my painting, I started this, but I haven't fully finished. But my background is going to be symbols that represent African motifs. So most of the symbols, I'm not going to lie, they're not symbols that I look at online and I kind of draw them. They're like, I have this moments where I listen to traditional African music and like whatever comes to my head is what I draw. So I feel like for me, I would say that's mystical experience, like in my sense. It's like, I remember when I used to go to church, I would sing to the point where I would feel like there's someone in my body that's kind of like, it's like a new presence that's happening in me. So in the same sense, it's like I listen to this music and then whatever I like, wherever my hand goes, that's the symbol that goes on the canvas. So there's no thinking, it's just doing. And then one of the things that I also did for this painting was like the stick figures, because I know you've seen some cave paintings, right? So that's the whole idea. It's like they have to look like really simple, really primitive, because like whenever I think people think about African art, we do have this conception of things being really simple and they're not really complex. So for my two hands, when I'm doing this above, I kind of did two stick figures of like a male and a female, which is like represent the principle of like being opposites. There's one on one side and one on the other side. And then for the beads, it's just like going back to what I learned growing up, using my hands to make jewelry. So I decided to like the halo that goes around my head, it is different from the rest of the background, but then I have beads that represent African culture. So it's like I take this context of the painting of the Virgin Mary, because that's what I initially used, and then in my own sense, I take it, do something else, and use iconography that I feel is more personal to me. So this is just like me finding out my African heritage, because I feel like as much as I lived in Kenya for a long time, I was not really connected with my culture. It's just more like, it's like colonialization keeps happening in the weirdest of ways. You know, there's the point where you lose your language, you lose your traditions, and I feel like for me, this is like a moment for me to go back to realizing like all these traditions that I have lost. So I feel like that was one of the fun things that I did with these paintings. But yeah. That's the inspiration behind this painting. So it's like, in a sense, it's really not connected to Western religion. It's more of like African tradition, but take inspiration.
Well, I think this conversation was good though, because I mean, clearly like we cleared up like even like as small as a detail of adding A before the title.
It does make a difference.
It makes a difference.
So the two hangers representing me and my mom, the basic point is we are two different identities, but then somehow as mother and daughter, we kind of intermingle and intertwine, and then we form this mess in the middle. So those hangers are suspended wrong, but I started with blue from this side and I ended with blue on the other side. So since the hanger moved, it just looks weird. But the point is, it's like we're mirror images of each other. So that's the point. So for the new and improved sculpture, we're gonna make people. And I have to find a way to make us look intertwined at the center, and then have sculptures of people connecting. That's not terrible. It looks funny, but like, we'll get there.
I thought you were literally gonna like just wrap it all around.
Well, then it's not gonna be like structural. It's gonna fall. So it's whatever, they aren't together. So it's like fuse them into one being.
Into this one human being?
Yeah.
You sure this head is not gonna fall down? I feel like it's
don't
too
jinx
heavy.
it. Don't jinx
No,
it.
no, no.
No, it's not.
Okay.
Oh.
Okay. Do we have to put eyes on it though?
just moved
Like, would we need eyes on this?
Actually, leave the head alone.
That's exactly.
Let's
yeah. It's well draped.
Let's just like start from here. Well, just do the drapes from like right here, and then.
But that's what I was doing.
Oh, I
before you
didn't. I
came
wasn't
and-
looking. I'm sorry. There, that way. Okay. Man, I'm never gonna make a person again.
You're done.
This is my first and last one.
Basically.
So we're doing a sculpture that's supposed to represent our relationship together. So as you can see, it's a big mess, but then not in a bad way. Stop looking sad.
Oh no, I'm.
So
Who said I'm sad?
okay,
Not at all.
me and my mother and I, we're
Me
cool
and Patricia.
people. Anyway, so this sculpture initially I did for my sculpture class, and it was my final project. And essentially, I noticed when I did my whole sculpture, I talked to her on the phone. So that's what inspired this, and for me to kind of do this. And basically, we are two different people, but then our identities and our life stories intertwine, and we kind of fuse into one being at the top. So the legs retain their
Walking
little
away from me.
individuality, but then when you get to the top, we're the same person. Another fun fact that I noticed today. So on the legs, like the one that's my mom, the legs are like pointed outwards, and that's how she walks. And then I walk with one of my toes
pointed inward?
It's pointed inwards, which is represented in the sculpture. But yeah, so we are gonna like talk about our relationship as we are making the sculpture, and hopefully none of us cries.
I'm bound.
It's okay.
Cry just a little bit, but
Just a little bit.
it might be from.
Anyway,
like,
so fun fact, Patricia had me when she was 22. We just calculated and we found out the actual age. So she was 22, and I think when you're 22, you are really young to have kids, personally.
Yes.
So I think she had a lot to see in the world, and I do not think she was so ready to be a mom. Did you have plans of what you were gonna do?
With myself?
Duh.
Yeah, I wanted to work with the UN. I don't know why and how, but
It's like-
I really wanted to work with the UN. That was kind of my dream.
So you wanted
Like
to
a peacekeeper. Like, I really wanted to work. So,
Okay.
yeah.
I'm
that was
laughing
my
at
goal.
peacekeeper because in the house you do not bring peace.
Oh, I do.
Nah.
I mean, you guys are like chihuahuas because, you and your brother always fighting, but... And I
So-
realized when you guys fight and I come in between, it's like I'm the bad guy. So I just am like, okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yep.
I mean, not like
You
bad
remember
fights,
like when
but
we
like
were
good-
doing Swahili when we were younger, and then there was this medali. Medali is literally a proverb. So, and it said, when two bulls fight, it's the grass that
But
gets
yeah.
hurt. So you're like the grass. So
Yeah.
you shouldn't be in between when we're fighting.
Exactly. Even when you were very little, me, like when I told you something about Preston, you would look at me weirdly like, why are you talking about my brother like that?
He's cool.
Yeah, exactly.
He's cool. And then we're not gonna see Preston, but we do have a painting of Preston that we will see in this exhibition. Anyway, so what I wanted to talk about, well, I'm trying to remember. So my mom moved to the United States when she was, how old were you? I was about to say, it was 2007, right?
Yeah.
And I was like 5 or 6.
Yeah.
6. So I honestly do not remember most childhood memories with you, except the fact that you would send me to school and I would run away. That I remember because
But
I don't know.
that was before that.
I know that's
you
what I'm
running
saying.
away,
My few
yeah.
memories that I remember is like you sending me to school. I get to the gate, I turn back.
You were
Go back
hiding
home.
in like
I love.
so many weird places.
Yeah, I used to hide in the forest.
Yeah, exactly. And sometimes you walk home like a long walk, and somebody will find you on the way and be like, "I know that child," and they'll put in the car and then bring you back.
Yep. So those are like my early memories of you and me. And then I do remember like I feel like the weeks or days that like before you moved, and then I didn't see you for a long time. Because I always remember the song that played in the background, because I feel like that was the song that played on the radio most of the time, because it was Walk Away. And then right now I can say I felt like you walked away at the time. I mean, I know you didn't, but then, looking back, I'm like, dang, this girl just walked away.
Oh.
You just got up one day and you're like,
I know. Yeah. That kind of made me sad, by the way, when like I saw that.
on the script.
Yeah, yeah.
No, I know you didn't. It's
No,
just
no,
like,
no. Like I mean, when I saw that, it kind of like made. But I knew if I didn't do that, we wouldn't have, had a better life. So I was like, okay, I gotta have to do this for me and for you.
cool.
Yeah.
So we had that moment where you left, and then when she left, she had this bright idea of taking me to boarding school. And that was the end of the beginning. Yo. So in boarding school, I went to boarding school when I was 7.
Tiny.
Dang, you should go to prison for that.
Oh dear.
7 is like, that's not even, I don't even know the difference between left and right.
But the funny part is when you're talking about boarding school, you talk about something that is really bad.
It's not bad. It's not terrible, but
yeah. It's like you have so
Imagine-
many people around you, the kids, the teachers, the
Those teachers
cooks.
used to beat us up, girl.
I mean, that's that time.
Ugh,
Because I
yeah.
think times have changed and they
Okay.
don't do it anymore. Because now if you touch somebody's kid, you're going to prison. But that time, it was like, okay,
Okay, so I went to boarding school really young. So I feel like in boarding school, I had to like gain a new personality because like I cannot boss people around anymore. It's just like I don't have grandma, I don't have grandpa, I don't have anyone except me. When me and Chella always talk about this, like the moment when you are left in boarding school, your heart like sinks. Like I don't know how to describe it.
I know that
but it
feeling.
feels like
Yeah.
your heart goes cold from the bottom, and it's like, shit. I'm just
Yeah,
like
here by
here by
yourself.
myself.
Yeah.
And then I mean, I feel like life at boarding school was cool. It wasn't terrible. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah.
It was cool, except
And
when
because,
we
like,
knew-
I mean, for you, it was like, even if I left you, like, the way, like, you could go to a day school, you used to run away. So I didn't want to, like, think of you running away and then somebody finding you and kind of, like, taking you away from us. So it was like, okay, I have to pick my battles. So I was like, okay, what, boarding school. And then the other thing is, like, for you to get, like, to know other people, outside the village.
Yeah. That was cool.
Because you
I didn't hate it,
really
but I didn't
have
like it.
you have cool friends from boarding school, right?
Yeah,
Like
I
you do. Like Chella is like your sister now, so
Yeah. That was the best part of boarding school.
yeah.
Anyway,
I mean,
so
I feel like everything has like a good part and a, so
you're
it's
right,
like
you're
a
right.
coin. You toss it head.
50-50.
Yeah, exactly.
That's because this exhibition is technically about like life at balance and how sometimes, we think something has to be on either opposites, and then, things are good, things are bad. But then the point of things being good and bad is for you to see the balance of it. So that was kind of what led to me calling this coincidence of opposites. And that's why we are dressed in opposite colors, except I have black for no reason. And yeah. So, I mean, well, thank you for making the sculpture with me. Do you remember that conversation that we had?
Yeah.
So, I feel like as we grow older, which is like one of the, I feel like effects of being in boarding school, you forget language. Because for me, when I was younger, I knew Kissy. Like,
Yeah, you were talking like a parrot.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But right now, I know the words, but when they come to the tongue, I like,
But you
it's like the way I was singing the wrong thing, and you're like, "What are you singing?" I'm like, "Well, that's what I heard." Here,
and
let's exchange
'cause,
colors.
yeah, the
Give me a
other
book.
thing is like I feel like in Kenya sometimes, like if it's parents, they want everybody to know English, like their kids. Like
Oh, yeah.
that's when like everybody sees you like.
So we're colonized from
Yes,
the beginning.
Yeah, exactly.
Dang, that's kind of sad.
Yeah.
So I was thinking, like with every generation, we kind of get filtered down and down and down. Because when I was thinking like about traditional dance and traditional stories, like sometimes I feel like I don't know so much about my own tribe or like the traditions that we are supposed to have. Like it's like we lost them somewhere, and it's like not whitewashed, but we are urbanized.
Yeah.
That's the best way I can say. Because also a lot of people move to cities.
Yeah.
And the point is to like live in the city, and it's like there you have. It's like you forget everything about who you are, I would essentially say. So, you know.
Because even the way you speak, if you go to like the countryside and the
It's
city,
a little
totally
different. This person is looking cool.
Yeah.
It's looking very intertwined.
It's two people in one.
You know, that's actually crazy. So as we were talking about our relationship, one of the things, like after boarding school, we did not live with each other for a while. Like, I would say, but like adolescence and all that, I did not live with you. So the moment that I had to start living with you, it was really weird.
Yeah.
Because it's just like, this lady telling me what to do. I haven't seen her in like 5 years. And I'm like,
But you were not like.
I wasn't a bad kid, but I did have a
kid.
grudge, like for a while.
No, I realized that like you could just be quiet for for some reason, and I say, you know what, take your time. I know it's not gonna last forever, so
Here,
I didn't want to push.
a yellow. I did have a little grudge, which I don't have anymore. Because I remember one of the things that I really love the internet sometimes, because I read this thing that said sometimes we're mean to our parents, but they're also someone's kid. And it's their first time living too. So it's like we're all having new life experiences all at the same time. And, you know, I have to be kind because you're also trying. And I feel like that was the moment I was like, she's trying. Let me stop.
I kind of feel like you were vocal about how you felt. Sometimes, I mean, you were quiet at some point, and then you started like talking, and then asking questions, and then I'll tell you like what it is, how I feel, how you feel. You know.
We made it.
Yeah, we
made it. That was.
Yay.
Yeah. So now we have a nice relationship, which I am proud of.
Yeah. Whereby, like, if I don't talk to Prim by a certain time, I feel like there's
6 p.m.
something missing.
So the other day, I noticed kuna words in Swahili, I don't know the meaning. Kirade, baba tegeranya kweso dinde, baba. Yeah, but see, that's the part I was thinking about. Oh, buddy, baba. Baba tegeranya kweso dinde. So looking at someone at the end of life and the beginning of life are pretty weird concepts to grasp. So I have my youngest brother, his name is Peshu, and he's pretty young, still finding his footing in the world. And for this specific painting, I decided to kind of use the duality of life and death in the same painting. So for the formal choices that I used for this specific painting, I have beads which are just to make it look nicer and give it a little edge. And I took beads and sewed them all around his body so that you can separate the background from the painting itself. And for this, I decided to use a really great background that makes the child look like he's in a hole. And then I decided to wrap him in white because normally white is associated with life and light. So there's that duality of something very dark, and then there's the white that brings out the duality of this. And next we're going to look at a painting that I made of my grandma, which is the opposite of this. So my grandma died a few years ago, and I decided to use this painting of her to represent the duality between life and death. So, story about my grandma. So, from what I remember, most of her life she has always been sick, and the only memory that I have of her not being sick is when we were in her garden, and I remember she was plowing the garden on that day, and she had ordered one of the farm boys to make me a little plow so that we could spend time together. And I remember this specific day because that's pretty much the last day she was ever in the garden working. So she had her boots on and she had a black skirt, and I can vividly see the sweat coming off her face and into her shirt. And that's pretty much all the memory that I have of her doing strenuous work. So for this painting specifically, I decided to use a very bright background, and it's my first experiment with a decorative fabric. So for this fabric, I went to Joann's and tried finding a fabric that connects what I remember from her to something that memorizes her. So for this one, I decided to use flowers because the flowers remind me of a pattern on her curtains, which are animals and birds going up and down, and they are made of lace. So I found these flowers, and although they are not really the same, I like the movement because it gives the illusion of things moving in the back. I also liked using this fabric because this is my first experiment with such fabric. So it took a long time getting it together and getting used to painting on fabric instead of canvas, but we made it. Still in the woods, but we have something stable to work from. So I spent a lot of my childhood with Baba and Babu Makori, and they always let me sleep in the middle of their bed, so in between them. And every night before we slept, she would make me sing a song to her, and then she would join in at the end. And this memories just remind me of love because at this point I felt considered, I felt seen, and I think for most of my childhood, I did remind them of their daughter who had passed away, and it's the reason why they gave us the names that they gave us. So in my family, all the girls are named Manya, and the funny thing about her, like our names, is everyone has their name which is connected to the attribute that they have. So I have a picture of us when we were younger. So we have me, and normally they would call me Manya Mdogo, which means Manya the shortest, because I was the shortest of all our cousins. And then this is my grandma, and this is my favorite cousin, Manya Mrefu, which means Manya the tallest. And then we have Manya Rose, who is the only one who we called with her mom's name. So I don't know why we did that. But that's one fun thing about the naming that they gave us. So for this painting, I also think it was pretty fun because I had to paint from a picture of her, which is not the best. So trying to figure out where to place things and trying to make her look like her as much as I could has been pretty hard, but I think I like it because it was a challenge both working with a fabric and making sure that I'm careful not to damage the background. So yeah, this is the painting of my grandma that talks about being dead and being reborn in another person. So to die is to be reborn. And what's your name?
Cade Tabit.
Okay. Anyway, so we are gonna look at the paintings that are opposites of each other. So I will explain my thinking about this and how I came to the conclusion of using you as my model. So for this one specifically, I remember I did have, because I figured out I was going to be working in opposites, so I already knew I wanted something to be opposite. So this is one of the things that I made, and I was intentional about what I was going to make, because I remember picking your outfit, if you're going to have the same glasses, we were talking about all this. So for this one, is red the opposite of green? You should know
Not
this.
technically.
Exactly. It's technically not the opposite, but I think it works out in this sense with how the colors work together. So for your glasses, I wanted to do ice. So I am going to call your painting While the World Freezes, or what else could I call it? Because this one is While the World Burns. So yours melts, freezes.
I don't know. Freezes would be the opposite. But I don't
Kid,
know.
you're not so helpful. You're like, I don't know.
I don't know.
Okay. But, so it's going to be blue because I feel like while looking at this too, it's, for the background, I used fire for yours. So the way I'm thinking about it in a gallery is, so this one stays like this, and then this one is on the other side. So then we kind of make opposites. So I see the fire on your background and you see the ice on mine. See what I did there? Yeah.
Okay,
So
okay.
that's where I'm going with that. So that's where the opposites like come into play. For this one, I also made it a little more obvious because for the rest of them, I've done like stories that are opposites of each other. So for this one, it's like, okay, you see fire, you see ice, and then they make opposites. A
Ask you a
fun
question.
fact about Kate, he is a 3D artist, and I would say I do admire you as an artist because you do see things in a way that I do not see them. And sometimes it's funny because when I'm doing my 3D projects, you'll be like, well, if you do this, it's gonna really look cool. And I'm like, I don't see it, but then I also trust your vision like to the end of what it's gonna look like. So I feel like that's pretty cool. For me, I think like working on a 2D surface and it's flat, and then I can make the illusion of movement, and then you actually do the movement. So how does that feel like for you as an artist?
I don't know. I mean, working 3D, I like to be involved in what I'm doing. It's not that I get bored with 2D. I enjoy it and I love it. But with 3D, I get lost in it.
You do get lost
And I
in
get
it.
sucked into it, and I just get obsessed. That's why I love it so much. I get obsessed with it, and it just takes me away from everything else.
Okay. So you're escaping from the world. That's actually cool because this has something to do with the world, which I feel like it's pretty cool. I mean, I also feel like if we were the type of people who are like in a gallery and we have to overanalyze something, we can talk about global warming and all those problems of the world, which I think it's pretty cool. It does start a lot of conversations on different things.
Right.
But yeah, that's my conceptualization of these two paintings and how I want them to turn out. So you're still in the process of making, so you're in like the bottom of the painting, the way we talk about it, like this is where you start and everything is good, and then you're like all the way at the bottom. So the painting still looks rough. That's why I didn't want you to see it today.
That's all right.
But you did. You don't look like that.
Thanks. I'm glad.
But yeah. And so this is Jim Viwe, and he has been my professor for painting for about 3 years now, right?
Yeah.
Because I met you in 2021, right in this room, and we are about to part ways, and I'm about to fly out the nest.
You are about ready to fly out of the nest.
Are you excited?
Yeah, that you get to move on. It's sad that you do. I mean, I've enjoyed working with you, so that's
Yeah.
parts.
It's been pretty fun.
I think it's fun.
I've kept you on your toes for
Yes,
the
you
last
have. You have
3
kept me on
years.
my toes.
It's been pretty cool.
Yeah.
'Cause-
You work hard. That's what I like.
Thank you.
I like people who work hard.
I need to work smart. I need to work smart.
Yeah, but working hard. Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah.
So I feel like I would say you have probably been like the biggest influence in my art career in general. Just reflecting on it, because when I was writing the script for this, I had to think about, okay, why did I decide to do this and that? Because I remember one of the first figure drawings that I saw were yours in the other room. Because like on the door, there's like a little place where you can peek into the second painting room, and then
There used to be, yeah.
and I could see the work that you were working on. I was like, oh my gosh. Honestly, I cannot wait to like go to the next class, because I remember when we start off with foundations, we kind of stay in this room for a really long time. So I was waiting for the day I had to move to the other room. I
Right.
was like,
The other room's a lot more fun than this room.
exactly. I
Yeah.
was like, I
This
cannot.
room's it's okay, but it's a lot of it's just getting all the fundamentals down. So it's not meant to be fun.
Yeah.
It's meant to be informative and skill building, so that you can
Yeah.
have what
Yeah.
you need to move on, so you're free to do what you want to do next.
Yeah. Yeah, so I used to be envious of the other room. So I would watch, like, I would see your drawings. I was like, wow, I cannot wait till I'm like that good.
Yeah.
And then also, I feel like one of the things that I liked about painting, it's like, I remember we were sitting right there, and I was doing my acrylic painting, and we were doing reflection. And you asked me, is this the first time that you tried painting? I'm like, yeah. You're like, oh, you're good.
Yeah.
And with that, I feel like it gave me more courage to keep going, because I was like, I want to do art history because that's a little easier, and I don't have to like learn a new skill, because all I have to do is think, and
Right.
talk about art.
Well, and research is probably something you're already familiar with.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
that's a little easier. And
Yeah.
I was like, I've never drawn in my life. I've never tried, painting. So this is a little hard. And
well,
trying
I
to get a
think-
shortcut in life.
No.
I mean, in my head at the time, I was like,
But I think that's why so many people don't stick with it, because it's intimidating and hard. And
it is.
Yeah.
And yeah, the key to painting is seeing. And I feel
Yep.
like for the first year, I did not understand that. For a really long time, I did not understand that, okay, what you're seeing on the picture or whatever you're trying to paint is literally what you need to put on your canvas. So I feel like right now, I can see when I'm making my mistake, because I'm like, that doesn't look right. That looks wrong. So I feel like that's also an exciting part about this whole journey. And then another thing that you helped me do was my non-objective paintings, because I remember I wanted to be very representational for a really long time, and then I was like, oh, I don't want to try abstract paintings. Everyone can do an abstract painting. And then you were like, how about you think about them as non-objective, and you just play with colors. And I feel like that kind of gave me a foundation to work in representational figure drawing, and then play with colors on the other end, which is pretty easy, and I really like it because I get to be experimental, I feel like.
Right, and I think it can be easy, but it's also that you have a really good understanding of the fundamentals, and so the elements, and so when you understand that, you understand line and color, and you understand form and balance, not only the elements but the principles. And so then it allows you to utilize those pieces to make something that is not objective and make it work, because it's easy to make it look like crap.
Yeah,
Yes.
it is easy to make it look like crap. And
Yeah.
then I feel like that's what my understanding of abstract art was for a really long time.
Yeah.
Because I remember we even talked about conceptual art, and you were like, yeah, that's not art. Like anyone can just.
That's not my, I do not appreciate
I know you
conceptual
don't.
art. Not at all.
Which is true. So I feel like, having to learn with you has been pretty awesome, because
Good. I'm glad. Thank you.
I have gotten to learn a lot, because a few years ago I would have never painted a person and painted it to completion.
Right.
And also, when I started talking to you about the things I wanted to experiment with portraiture, you really helped me, because you were like, why don't you try this? It's hard. And then you made me do my backgrounds for a long time before you were like, you can just go buy a fabric and try it.
Yeah, I mean I think that's a different approach once you have a good fundamental understanding of how you need to do it right first.
Yeah.
Then you can start experimenting and go other ways.
Yeah.
But that's one of the things, though, that students don't understand, that you have been very successful at understanding, is that one, it takes hard work, it takes dedication, and if you're not willing to put those things in, it doesn't matter what any of the professors here tell you. It won't matter, because it goes nowhere. So we can tell you all day everything you might need to know, or a way to get to where you need to be, but unless you're willing to put in the effort, work, and work through those ideas, principles, concepts, it's going to go nowhere. So that was all on you, not me or anybody else here.
Yeah, because it's been a while since you touched my paintings.
Right, and it's the way it should be.
Because I remember, I was laughing because when I walked in, I looked at this, and I remember when I did this painting, you kind of painted most of my painting, because you used it as an example. So you went off on mine, and I was like, okay, I don't really have much to do. I just have to fix the lines and all that. So yeah, nowadays you don't touch it.
No, that's the way it should
And
be.
that's I feel like when you stopped touching my paintings, I was like, I'm getting good.
Yeah, exactly.
That's my light moment. I was like,
Right.
if he's not touching it and correcting it,
Yep.
I'm feeling proud of myself.
Exactly, and that's the way it should be.
Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Yeah,
I'm excited.
I'm excited.
Yeah, are you ready to watch this whole documentary and see how it comes along?
Yeah, I am. It'll be interesting.
it's
But again,
pretty
that's you being creative and taking the initiative and making things happen. So that's what it takes. Is any of these students that don't do these things, then, you're going to be successful after this because you make yourself successful, not because we made you successful. That doesn't happen.
Yeah.
We're simply giving you tools, knowledge, experiences, and then you have to take them on and do what you can with it. So, but there's none of us that will make you successful. That's all on you.
Amen.
Yep.
You have 40 more days.
Really? It's only 40?
I don't know. I'm just
Okay.
guessing. I'm not.
And I'm gonna have to start really being, teasing the crap out of you.
Yeah, I was like, yeah, we have a few more days and graduation. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
kind of sad. I'm gonna miss you.
I'm gonna miss you too.
I know.
Yeah.
Jim also looks like he has the same eyes as my grandpa, which is a little weird because sometimes I feel like I'm in the same room with him. And I feel like that's also what makes me now want to disappoint you a lot because your eyes.
So I have grandpa eyes.
I didn't say that.
I think you kind of have. So.
No, y'all just have the same eye structure. Like when I look at it, like into his eyes, and they're like the same person on the eyes only.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's our interview with Mr. James
I take
Bway.
that as a good compliment.
Oh, you should take it.
Oh,
'Cause,
yeah. I think that's a really good compliment.
It's helped me be serious with painting.
Good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's all for our interview today.
Awesome. Thank you.